We are amazing because our passion is limitless and our drive is intense. Therefore, you will not deny our grind. You are now listening to the Faith, Grind, and Inspire podcast.
Welcome back to another great episode of Faith, Grind, Inspire podcast. I am your host, Gene Alert.
And I'm your co-host, Colbert the Alchemist. And we have a special guest in the building today. Somebody very dear to me. She's special. She's basically like a big name, a big deal, even though she may be modest. This is Rajni Jacques. She's actually, I'm proud to say this is my cousin. This is family. Yep. But she's doing amazing things. So I'm just so happy to have her on the show. So thank you for coming. Thank you for blessing us with your presence.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
Amazing. Yes, no, thank you.
Being home with family,
yes.
new
family.
family.
Yes. So the show is all about the mindset of entrepreneurs, right? Mm-hmm. And you know, I know you're a mom. I know you're a wife. Like, I know all this. So we're going to talk about balance.
Yes.
And we always ask men about balance. So just know that question is coming, right?
I'm ready.
You ready? Yeah. So tell us who you are. Tell us what you do. Like, tell us who you are.
In such little time. No. I'm Rajni Jacques. I am a fashion director at Condé Nast, but I'm also a creative director. And I think sometimes people don't necessarily understand what that means. And essentially what that means is, especially being a fashion director, some of the publications that you see, that you see in the mall, that you see at the grocery shop, I help create and produce them. I've been doing this since I got out of college. I went to college at Rutgers. I went to grad school at Columbia. And then I just started in media, working for InStyle, Nylon, Glamour magazine.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
And as of recently, I went and I started to work on the retail, like Madewell and digital side. And then I came back to publications when I was fashion director at Teen Vogue. Was there, and then became fashion director of Teen Vogue and Allure magazine. And then after I had my second baby, I really just needed to kind of like focus on one. So now just fashion director at Allure. But at the same time, I'm creating a business for myself. So I'm doing creative consultancy outside of what I do, working with brands, working on influencer marketing with certain brands, and essentially sometimes being the influencer myself. But even when doing that, knowing, to have that business plan behind it, because I don't necessarily consider myself an influencer. I know I am someone that can influence, but I don't tout myself to any old brand or any old thing to sell. It really has to kind of make a mark with me, and really represent who I am in some type of way for me to kind of be involved in that. And so I guess like all in all, I'm just a creative, and a creative for media, digital companies, and brands.
I love that.
Yeah.
Now, I know you guys are family, right? But, you're Haitian.
Of course.
So one of the questions that, when I heard that resume just now, I'm like, I'm impressed. I'm like, I'm like, wow. But the one thing that just popped up in my mind was, how was that growing up when we grew up in a family where it's like there's only 3 careers?
Yes, I know.
Where did this come from?
I know.
Yeah,
It's weird because
like I said, you went against the grain and you were making moves early. At one point, what magazine were you working for? Way back, was it?
I was at Vibe.
You were
Yeah,
Vibe.
actually, I can't. Yeah,
Daytona.
I didn't even. Yeah, Vibe was one of like the first publications I ever kind of. That took me in, and I started working for it. I can't believe I forgot that, because that was technically and really the start, and the thing that kind of like pushed me. And also I think it was a thing that let me believe that, I can kind of do this, because I really didn't know that this was a profession. Obviously, coming from a family where, both my parents are physicians, so I just didn't. I think the world that we as Haitians, you grow up in, it's like, are you a lawyer? Are you a physician? Are you an engineer, or possibly a teacher? Or you know what I mean? And that's kind of just the circle that you need to stay within. But I always knew, I didn't know that this type of career existed, but I always knew that I was very creative.
Okay.
And I always loved like painting pictures for people or creating experiential, like things for people. Or I always knew that I wanted to get my hands dirty on the creative side. I just always was like that as a kid, always painting. Which is something that I do now, and it's a hobby of mine, and it calms me down. And I'm really happy that I've gotten back to that, because I kind of lost that in the fast-paced world. I wasn't able to do something for myself, so that is something that I do for myself. But I was always one of those people that could always look at a magazine or always thought of a story and always thought of a narrative. And I didn't know how to manifest that in any other way, because I wasn't given the tools that this could be a career. And in college, I started like dabbling, because I think in college you're open to everything. And so you start talking to people. You have your professors who are like, oh, you were really good at doing this. And you're like, I was? And so little by little confidence came in, and little by little I was like, people can make money off of doing this? Oh, so I don't need that 9-to-5 job per se. Or I don't need to be in a career of medicine, because when I went to college, I was like, I guess I'm just going to be a doctor. And then like halfway through, I was like, well, I don't really want to be a doctor. I never had a love for it, but maybe I'll become a lawyer. And so like I did all those steps to become that. And I was like, well, I really don't like that either. And I remember my mom did say, she gave me like a really good gem. And she was like, you have to do something that you are really passionate about, because it should be what you do for the rest of your life. And you should, for the rest of your life, you should be doing something that you're passionate about. And I think that really resonated with me. And that's when I was kind of like, well, none of this is anything that I want to do. I can't see myself at 40. I can't see myself at 50. I can't see myself at 60 doing this. So what is it? But I think it was hard for me to find what that was, just because I wasn't exposed to
it. Yeah, absolutely.
To any of that, yeah.
Yeah. One of my cousins, he's a super creative, and he's always had a camera growing up, a camcorder. And I remember, same thing, but he was the older cousin. So he was the one we had to follow, you know? Yeah. But he broke the mold in my family. And now, so he went to NYU for film, not, his parents were like, doctor, lawyer. He was like, no, film school, and now this guy is like doing videos and doing all types of, his name is Picture Perfect, but Reginald Vincent, and he went through it. He did stuff with Diddy. He did Cardi B's video, like with the lion and stuff. Yeah, Bodak Yellow. Yeah. And but he's the one that started it, and then we all just,
like, oh, we can do that too.
We can do that too. Yeah. So I didn't go that route. I went into the real estate business, but. And that was like a whole taboo thing, but we did it. So I'm proud of you. I'm proud to see a sister, and not just Haitian, just a woman of color, just dominating stuff like this, and especially an industry like this. And now, what was one of the challenges you faced going through this space?
I don't think that the challenges definitely weren't kind of at home. Okay. I didn't have challenges with my parents.
No, not probably at home, but just in the career.
I think like when they didn't understand what I was doing. They're like, okay, if you like it, well, sure. But I think the industry at the time when I started, there weren't many people of color, and there weren't many, women of color. And so that was very hard, because then you became two things. You could be very taboo, or you were kind of the token. And so being in a world where you're talking about beauty, and you're talking about fashion, and you're talking about like how you look, and it is very true. If you don't see representation of yourself, you don't necessarily know where you can go, because you don't. There's no foundation, essentially. And I felt like in the business that I was, which is fashion, beauty, media, there really wasn't. There were only a couple of, Black women that I saw. I mean, yes, there were like the, Beverly D'Angelo, like. The famous models and stuff like that. There were those people, but I think behind the scenes, there really weren't that many people. And there, you know, there was the Beth Ann Hardisons, but I think for me, there was this woman, her name is Sydney Bolden. She was a fashion director at this defunct magazine called Honey Magazine. And that's kind of, you know, one of the things that I was like, oh, what's that? And then there was another editor, Bevy, and she was at Vibe. So then I saw glimpses, but even through those lenses at first, they were Black women in media working at Black publications or Black media. And so it was great. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. But then once you looked outside of that, there still weren't many. And once getting into that space, you know, I think at least for me at the time, I obviously wanted to showcase my ideas. I obviously wanted to talk about, you know, fashion and all that and kind of bring my own lens to it. But at the same time, I was also very afraid because not everyone understood where my references were coming from. Until I do think when, you know, Black became a commodity in a sense. And Black was cool and like Black-ish or Black that, like it became something that everyone wanted to be a part of. And then, you know, then that's when you slide into, in a way, being the token and people asking you things that you're like, huh? And so I think that was probably the hardest for me to navigate and to find those allies that understood where I was coming from and understood why, and understood, you know, certain ways that I felt about things. Trying to find that core group of women that can understand and help you through was something that was super important to me, but then also like my mentors. And the great thing, I you know, the industry, it's not like, you know, fixed or anything, but I do have to say that there are more women of color that are in the industry. And I see more, you know, like young Black women wanting to be in this industry, whether it's as an editor or as a creative or as whatever. So that's the really nice thing. It's a slow and steady climb, but it's happening. It's not there, but it's happening.
It's making a shift.
Yeah,
making a shift. I see you use a lot of your shoots. You use so many various women of color, and it's like the different colors, and it's like, where do you pull that from? Where do you pull that type of like inspiration from?
Honestly, it's research. Like you have to, and I say this to all, you know, my interns, my assistants, like you have to know your research. Like in order to get to the future, you have to know your past.
Wow.
And so for me, when it comes to, you know, referencing and creating stories, I go back in the past and I reference like, you know, different time periods. I reference different skin colors, different hairstyles, and not just from like the 90s and the 80s and the 70s, like going way back. I reference, you know, our Haitian culture and heritage. I you know, African culture and heritage, because I do think there was a point where you didn't see stories like that. You didn't see Black as beautiful. And me being one of the only people. And like I said, there are more people that are in the space, but me being of color, I had to make sure that, you know, stories like that get told and stories like that get pushed, because those are beautiful. They might not be beautiful to the whole, but those are beautiful to us, and they're beautiful to me. And, you know, I want them to be beautiful for the next generation coming up, to see themselves as beauties. Yeah,
absolutely.
I have a daughter. I want her to see herself as like a beauty, you know?
Yes, absolutely.
And smart.
That's
And
amazing.
smart. Yes, and smart. Absolutely. So, wow, there's so much. There's so much with you. Like, I love it. All right. So, let me just get this balance question out the way, right? So, how long have you been married?
I have been married now for, oh my God, 11 years. Yeah.
2009?
All right, and then that means 12.
Yeah. So I got married May 9th, 2009. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I was October 4th, 2008. So yeah, 12. Wow.
12, yeah.
Wow.
Wow, that's what's up. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So all right, so this is gonna help a lot of people then. So now, how many kids do you have? Two.
Yeah.
So
I have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, essentially.
So daughter and son. Mm-hmm. Oh, nice. You have the combination.
I have a combination.
That's what's up. Wow, and she still has a smile. I love it.
You got to. Glass is half full.
Are you sleeping team? Don't sleep or team sleep?
No, I sleep.
Oh,
They're actually very good sleepers.
That's good.
They're actually very good. I was very blessed with good sleepers, even though Diego right now, who's my son, is going through leaving the bed and coming into mama and dada's bed right now.
Oh yeah.
So we're dealing with that for the past like 3 weeks.
3 weeks?
Actually, past month probably.
I've been dealing with it for 4 years.
Well, I hope it doesn't get to 4 years. I'm trying to nip it in the bud right now.
He's negotiating. We're negotiating with him. We're
It's
like, look. He's like, I want a ninja bed, and so we got him the ninja bed. And he's like, well, I want a bunk bed now, so I don't want to go.
You're like,
no. You said
you chose this.
He said when I turned. He said when I turned 4, I'll sleep in my room. I promise. Yeah. 4 came around. Oh wait, no. Did I say 4? I meant 5.
They know how to negotiate.
Yes.
Yeah.
So one of the things. How do you balance work-life balance and family and work? Because I know your job is a lot of pressure.
It's demanding, and the thing is too, I do a lot of freelance and consulting work, so that's demanding. But I think how I balance it, to be honest with you, is that my job isn't who I am. My job is my job. My job, certain aspects of my job are my passion, but my job is not who I am. I'm just Rajni, on a daily basis. I'm not Rajni, the fashion director or creative. I'm just Rajni. And I think you have to, for a sense of like an aha moment, or just like breathing out and a sense of calm, you have to understand that. And I think that's such a huge thing that people need to know, not to put their worth in a title,
right?
Because that title can easily go away.
Absolutely.
And if you put your worth in a title and that title goes away, then what do you have left? You're just left with yourself.
Exactly.
So you have to learn how to like live on your own, how to be on your own, how to be by yourself. And I think that's how I balance it out. I know that I want to be by myself at times. I also know that I want to be with my family. I want to see my kids grow.
Right.
I want to see them walk, like their first walk, their first whatever.
Yes.
And so I think that gives me the drive to balance. I've never been overwhelmed in the sense where like I'm so overwhelmed with work I can't be with my kids. Or my immediate, my family,
right? Just
because it's not as important to me as my family.
Right. That's powerful.
Yeah.
How has social media how has the industry shifted in this age of social media? How has that happened? Because I spoke to somebody that he used to own magazines, a magazine company, and he's like, that it's over for that. Like everything is digital now. How has that happened?
It's shifted greatly to the point where I think a point in my career I had to realize that I needed to reinvent myself in some way. Or I wouldn't say, actually I take that back. It wasn't about reinventing myself. It was about pivoting. Because when I first started magazines were the thing, and it was coveted, and to be in a magazine, to work in a magazine, was like the chicest thing ever. And then I would say around 2011, 2012 was kind of a defining year where social media, where you had your Instagrams and your Facebooks, and like, websites were becoming more prominent because they could get the news out, the pictures out way faster than something that was tangible. And I think a lot of media companies, there was trouble kind of figuring out like where do we want to invest. And I think this is around the world. This is not just like in New York City. This is just like everywhere, because this new technology was taking us to a whole nother place. People now with social media know how to market themselves, and they don't have to go to a marketing agency or pay someone to market them. If you want to be a stylist, if you want to be a photographer, if you want to, you literally have Instagram to kind
Everything is right there.
Yeah.
At your
tout
fingertips.
yourself, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, you could create
YouTube.
YouTube.
Yeah.
You know, there's so many
YouTube.
people
Yeah.
that all the women that the how-to videos on YouTube.
Yeah.
One of my
It's-
homegirls, Taryn, she created like Taryn Guy. I don't know. She has a new name now,
Got you.
but she had, she was showing how to with your hair and different
Yeah.
hairstyles.
Yeah.
It's
Even like women growing locks and the
it's
transition.
a whole
It's a
new ball
whole-
game.
Yeah.
And you don't need to ask permission.
Right.
Yes.
And that's the thing. Like,
Yes.
you don't need to ask permission.
There's
If
no more
you-
gatekeepers.
No. And there used to be gatekeepers. It was like, you're cool and you're not.
Yeah.
And if you weren't cool, you couldn't get in.
The Mean Girls
And,
Club,
yeah,
right?
It was,
Yes.
it was a Mean Girls Club. And, sometimes there still is that same sentiment, but I think that has broken down a lot because it is more democratic.
Yeah, like that movie, Devil Wears Prada.
Right,
Like, that's one of my favorite movies. I'm sorry, guys.
It's a good movie.
But it's a good movie.
It's a
I
good
just love
movie.
the story,
Yeah.
But when I think of your industry, that's what I think of.
I think a lot of people think of the industry like that, and there are parts in that movie that it is very much like that. But Devil
yeah?
Wears Prada came out 2009? Don't quote me on it. But it was before like the big boom of social media. It was
Yes.
it was the Facebooks were out there, the MySpaces, whatever. I'm sure there were like other ones,
Yeah.
but
Right.
there was like Instagram truly changed the game. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then you got your Snapchats and like your TikToks, like all those other mediums that are just changing the game, where people can start making money just literally off their phone.
Yeah.
And you could create your own persona. You know what I mean?
I think that's some great advice for entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Do you have any other tips for entrepreneurs that you would like to share, or women that try and get
yeah.
into business? Or?
I think that the nice thing about today's age is that if someone says no to you, that's just one door. There's like 80 other doors that you can open. And so my thing with being an entrepreneur is honestly first being authentic to what you're trying to do. If you're trying to do something that's not authentic and doesn't feel right, it's not like part of your DNA, it's going to be a little harder for you. I'm not saying that you can't make it, because there's a lot of people out there
They fake it till they
who,
make it.
who fake it till they make
Oh,
it,
yeah,
and they're making beaucoup bucks off of that. But I think that's a detriment to probably your mental health down the line. So you're giving up something for something.
Right.
So I always say the people that I see on social media that are doing like great things are people that truly like know their brand, and when I say their brand, they know themselves. And that they're able to connect with people in a way that is super authentic and genuine. And through that, like, it just shows. Like, like when you're doing something, it shows when you like something a lot. You know what I mean? In
Absolutely.
your work, it shows if you're writing a paper and you love the subject, as opposed to writing a paper and you were like, you have to do the subject, but you have no connection to it.
Right.
Oh yeah, people could see if you're passionate.
Yeah, people can see it very clearly.
It's a glow,
It's
and you
a
have that glow.
Yes.
You have
I
that glow.
try.
She
I mean, not
loves what
this
she
morning.
does.
No, you
Yeah,
got that
no.
I
glow.
just came from the gym. Apologies
you
on
are
the big hair.
Totally fine. No matter what you do to disguise it, the glow comes
That's
out.
it.
You know?
That's it.
So it's all
That's
good. But tell me about your daily routine. I'm just curious about the.
Oh man, the
Yeah.
routine is very different. I feel like it's different every day.
Every day for
Obviously,
you?
with 2 kids. I mean, as of late, the daily routine starts at 4 a.m. because
Okay,
Diego
4.
comes into the bed and says, "Move over." So we move over and we try to talk him go in his bed. He says, "No, tomorrow I'll do it." A really conscious decision for 2020 is not have my phone by my bed. Put it somewhere where I physically have to get up and get it, because I was doing this thing for a long time where you like roll over, I pick up the phone, check emails. Oh, okay. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, and starting off the day with social media is probably not the best thing.
Right.
Well, it is not the best thing. I think it's not. So, 2020, like really trying to pare that down, waking up, doing a little stretch. If I can get at least 5 minutes to myself, like, just like a little stretch and, like giving myself an inner mantra of what I want to do today or what I need to accomplish today. I'm a night person, which is not the best thing. I work at night. I can just fire it off at night so that in the morning I feel like, oh, okay. Like I don't feel bogged down.
When the kids are asleep.
But I also found that I was sleeping way too late. You know, for me, like, oh wow, it was like, oh, bed at 12:45, 1. To me, that was early, and so I'm just trying to change that. But yeah, I mean, essentially, it's like getting up, waking up, hopefully 5 minutes of my day to myself. You know, like today, like going to the gym, getting those endorphins up, and then starting the day, because I feel like once the body is at work, then you can kind of like, I mean, like you just have all this energy to kind of just go from there, and then go into work, whether I go into work in my office or go into work at a photo shoot or something like that. Every day is different because I don't have like a set schedule. Sometimes I have meetings all day. Sometimes I have not one meeting all day, but I'm doing creative all day. Right. Like figuring out like what the next shoot is going to be, or sometimes talking to a partner of, you know, what I'm doing. I started this Instagram handle called The Kindred, which essentially is for young women of color, but it's for all women. And it's just about what mentorship is, you know, how to mentor, you know, but it's about beauty, fashion, culture, and just giving back and like, you know, creating a community for young women where they can swap stories and just talk about like, you know, what it is like to work in the workforce. And especially now, since the workforce is a lot of freelancers, what it means to be a freelancer, how to kind of divvy up your time. How do you hustle without being too thirsty? And like trying to, you know, creating a circle for these young women. So sometimes I'm working on stuff like that. Sometimes I'm working on stuff for my job and trying to get the shoot together. Now with this corona virus that's happening, like everything is in a halt. So now I'm literally like trying to troubleshoot. How are we going to do this shoot when everyone's like, oh, well, we're closing now. We're doing this. We're not, you know what I mean? So every day is different. Every day is different.
What time do you typically end?
If I have an event, probably around like 9:30, but I would say I've cut back on a lot of that. And I would say like 5:30. 5:36.
5:36.
Yeah,
Okay.
I try to leave by 5:30 so I can see the kids before they go to sleep.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So that's cool. So, all right. So that's nice. So now, is there anything that's on your mind that you want to put it out? The mic is yours.
In the world.
Yeah. To those little girls listening that are looking up to you.
Yes. Especially for the young females, you have to have self-worth. And I know it's a very hard thing to get to. You know, even for me, just the environment I grew up in the sense, like always being the only one, it's really hard sometimes to kind of be very confident and positive about yourself. And that's why I'm so big on representation, especially when the representation on the TVs and the magazines and even the social medias, whatever, are not of you. Just realizing that that you need to find your inner strength and inner confidence. Surround yourself with people that will bolster you, but will also check you in a very loving, healthy way. And, you know, create a core group, a foundation for yourself to help you kind of get through. And I think for young women, I think we have to not just, you know, rest our laurels on, are you cute? Are you pretty? Are you wearing the, you know, the flyest shit at, you know, at the moment? Like, it has to really be grounded in something. It has to be grounded in what are you doing for your community? What are you doing for yourself? What are you doing for your family? What are you doing to grow and be a better person? And I know a lot of this sounds very kind of like, you know, pie in the sky, but it truly is something I feel like as I've grown older, I wish I had someone kind of like really hone that in for me. And I think the last thing is kind of what we talked about. Do not put your worth in a title or, you know, be you in the sense like put all your worth in who you are and your attributes.
I love that.
Especially for young Black women. And, you know, representation is out there. We're getting stronger. I'm seeing more of us in so many different realms. So never feel like I can't do that. Google, research. There is someone that is doing it who looks like you. They might not be the most popular person. They might not be the most famous, but I guarantee you there is someone. And hold on to that visual and help you build yourself.
I love that. That tip of the day.
Yeah.
So, last question.
Yes.
Out of faith, grind, inspire,
Okay.
which word resonates with you?
Inspire.
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 Why?
Because I've had a lot of inspiration in my life, whether
Mm-hmm.
it was from my mother or from my mentors, and so that has really been a building block for me. Because I had that so much in my life. I would like to inspire others and make sure that someone who doesn't necessarily have it can even get it from me.
Okay.
And I want to give a shout out to Bella Charter School. It's our charter school that I work with in Bed-Stuy, but it's a charter school, high school of all young Black and brown females.
Wow.
And whenever I get a chance, I really try to work with them because it is such a great thing and it's such a great environment to bolster these young women who are Black, who are brown, who can see themselves in someone else and really aspire to do great things, big things in science, in math, in fashion, in media. So, yeah, I think inspiration. There's nothing, you can never go wrong with inspiration. You can find it all over. I find it on the streets when I walk on the streets, especially like in Bed-Stuy, like just the people that live there. Or, I saw this like old man not too far from here who is kind of like preaching about something and just, the sound of his voice and it just kind of like, just the octave of his voice going high. That inspired me for some reason. I don't know what he was talking about, but like just the sound of it. So I can find inspiration in this room.
Yeah. I love
Look at
it.
these sockets.
That's creative. Good creative. I love it.
Yes.
So, where can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram. My Instagram name is at Rajni, RAJNI _Jacques, JACQUES. And you could also find me doing content on The Kindred, and that is at THEE Kindred, KINDRED. So yeah, those are the two places you can always find me.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for
Thank
coming
you
onto
for
the
having
show.
me.
Absolutely. And
Thanks, guys.
Of course. We
Yeah.
had to make this happen.
there.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So shout out I want to thank all our listeners, Spotify, WABC. Thank you to our producers, Matt. Thank you, Ariel. Thank you, Brianna. Thank you, Colbert. Right? I like saying that. And so thank you to our guests. Thank you so much for all the listeners. I appreciate you guys. We won't be here without you. So continue to subscribe and continue to share this episode, this podcast. It's all about representation.
It
and
is.
it's all about sharing these stories of different people that are trying to inspire the world, working on that, making this a better place. So we need your help. So continue to inspire, continue to grind, and keep going no matter what.
Yes.
Peace.